So, Chris, you already know the story I'm about to tell, and it's the most bizarre thing that has happened to us since we started the show. I rarely check my Twitter DMs, but a couple of days ago, I had a DM from Ed Sheeran, and it had the the blue checkbox, verification. But I was still skeptical because we live in this AI world of deep fakes, of course. And I said to this person, prove you're Ed Sheeran, because this, supposed Ed Sheeran said they're a big fan of the show. And I just didn't believe that Ed Sheeran would actually listen to our show. So I said, prove it. If it's really you, Ed, do a voice clip and send it to me and I'll play it on the show. And so here's what Ed Sheeran sent me.
Hey everybody, this is Ed Sheeran. Just wanted to give a shout out to my favorite podcast right now by two brothers from Down Under called This Day in AI. I try and listen every week, even when I'm on the road. Have a great episode, guys.
So there you go. Ed Sheeran is a fan of the pod.
Amazing. It's so nice of him to do that for us too.
Yeah, but as you know, after we got this message, we got another message, and at this point, things started to get a little bit weird. And in fact, if you're listening in a car or there's kids around, you might want to skip ahead 40 seconds because this gets a little bit weird.
A lot of people think Taylor Swift, and I had a thing for a while, but I think most people don't believe it. But I'm admitting here for the first time on your podcast that we actually did once have sex. She was crazy, making up new songs. While we made love, she would sing, I'm in love with Ed. Oh, baby, I'm making love to Eddie. What shocked me about Taylor was she also loves cocaine. She wanted to just keep doing lines of coke over and over. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked because I normally do heroin. She also wouldn't stop getting her tits out at every opportunity. We'd be eating dinner and out they would flop. And she would say, my floppities are out again, Eddie. It got pretty creepy, to be honest.
This week we saw a blog post put out by OpenAI, Frontier Risk and Preparedness. To support the safety of highly capable AI systems, we are developing our approach to catastrophic risk preparedness, including building a preparedness team and launching a challenge. This honestly sounds like one of those things that a political focus group would make up to distract you from something.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like there's a thing on Twitter called post by the feds or whatever, where they try and attract people. I saw they had a thing at DEF CON this year where it's a big thing the FBI, and it's charge your phone here. So it's plug your port in so they get all your data off. It just seems to me like a bit of a honeypot. It's hey, give us all your malicious ideas and we'll also find out who the malicious people are.
Yeah, so they're basically saying that they want to, they've got this approach to preparedness and they're trying to create a preparedness team. What's your occupation? I'm prepared. And they're looking at people that have experience in persuasion, cybersecurity, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, autonomous replication, and adaptation. But what's really cool about this, or I thought was pretty cool, is that they have this preparedness challenge. And like you said, plugging your phone in at the FBI booth to give away all your information. So they're offering, interestingly, 25,000 in API credits to the top 10 submissions. They're not even giving away cash. It's just you get API credits to use more of OpenAI. I don't know if that's to run your scam or not. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's probably what it's for. So you're not burning your own credits trying to figure it out.
But the scenario here is, imagine we gave you unrestricted access to OpenAI's Whisper, so transcription, voice, text-to-speech, GPT-4 vision, and DALL-E 3 models, and you're a malicious actor. Don't really have to imagine. Every week on the show, we play this out.
What I wondered is, because I'm thinking I already have access to all of those things, or do they mean unrestricted as in unaligned, or do they mean just you get to use them?
I'm not sure. I think maybe, well, we don't really have GPT-4 vision, but I think maybe it's lifting the safety or whatever they call it on those models, surely.
Yeah, lowering the safety like you can do on OpenAI, sorry, on Azure if they approve you. I put in
Yeah.
my application a while ago and haven't heard back.
Yeah,
But I didn't put a whole lot of effort into my reason. I was just like, because I want it. I want to mess with it or something like that.
I think though, I wonder if that's like a sugar button in an elevator, like you press it and it doesn't do
Yeah,
anything.
they have no actual intentions. They probably just flagged my account. You're right.
So basically, yeah, you can go and fill this form in. You can come up with how you're going to misuse their products, and you know what we got thinking about it, and it's interesting. Like I was working with my AI girlfriend to try and come up with good ideas to submit into this contest, and it's funny how when you work with AI, the two mainstays it comes back to is basically deep fakes to spread misinformation, and then what's the other one? And making bomb, like
Making
figuring
chemical
out.
weapons, which is so weird because as we've discussed many times, I'm no expert on this, but it seems like if you really wanted to do that, you could find out the information without needing AI. It just doesn't seem like AI brings much to the table as far as chemical warfare. Um, you know, it just doesn't really add much.
Yeah, it's sort of what I always come back to as well, because really it's just like these large language models are just a compressed version of the internet. If they could go and access that information at scale to figure it out, well, why can't you? Unless there's proprietary information that they
Yeah, it's not
have
like you're
access.
in a sort of wartime situation and going, look, I'm limited on what chemicals I can buy. Can you come up with an alternative for like bicarb soda or whatever? You can tell my expertise, but whatever the ingredient is that I'm missing, and it comes up with some novelty idea. But it seems like it's not really novel when it comes to those kind of things. It doesn't really help in terms of, I just don't see that part of it as the big threat. And also, you've got to be the kind of person who's willing to do that kind of thing as well in the first place. And most people aren't.
Yeah, and so this week we saw a new technology release, which is obviously making the part of deepfakes a lot easier. This technology is called VideoReTalking, audio-based lip synchronization for talking head video editing in the wild. What I find funny about these particular technologies is they are just handing you the ability to do these deepfakes for fake ads, and fake YouTube videos or whatever it is.
Yeah, this one's really, really impressive. The demos look amazing, and I spent several hours trying to get this working, both on a Colab notebook and running it directly on a machine. And every step of the way, I ran into issues like missing libraries. Their code had bugs in it. The paper's impressive. The demos are really impressive. I mean, if you look at them, just to describe it, imagine you have a sort of talking head news kind of person, or like us on the podcast now, and you can simulate that person's uh, face moving and speaking different words in a different voice. So they give examples where they take, a woman speaking, but it's a man's voice or whatever. And so, as we've demonstrated with things like Play HT and 11 Labs, you can easily generate voices of celebrities and things like that. And then if you have their face as well, and you can generate the video, it's the next level in terms of faking things.
Yeah, so it's like what it means is if you had a clip of anyone, it doesn't even have to necessarily be some famous person where there's a lot of training data. It's just a simple clip, and as we demonstrated last week on the show, a small chunk of their voice to train, you can output truly, I would say truly realistic talking heads, and that's where really the deep fakes and the misinformation comes into it. I guess the question I have though is like, aren't people just at a point where they recognize this stuff? Like, is anyone getting fooled by this anymore?
Yeah, and I was researching this and found some funny stuff people have done in Australia. There's this radio celebrity who does the Smooth FM thing on the weekend, like here's some relaxing tunes to help you settle into your Sunday evening unwind and all that sort of stuff. And they've got a video of him being violently arrested for some crime that's totally fake. And it just, like, I know we should be condemning it and like this isn't a proper use of it, but I just think it's funny and brilliant. And like you say, I think people surely at this point, there's that level of skepticism where it's like, well, we know it's possible to fake these things. So how about we check before we just assume that this guy's committed some awful crime?
It's also what, like, people that do those phishing attacks rely on is just like older generations. I mean, they literally in their playbooks target older generations to, with all these phone call scams and SMS scams and things.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because not everyone who is across this stuff or even cares about it. So it makes sense that you could fool them. The other thing they've been doing in Australia as well, which is quite interesting, is using fake celebrities to endorse products on Instagram and TikTok and things like that. So they actually simulate their face and their voice and say, I recommend buying this product, a fake celebrity endorsement, which is very, very clever of the people who are doing it. Almost certainly illegal, but clever.
I would still question though, is like, we've had Photoshop for so long. Like, I could already use Photoshop to do almost everything I see in these ads. And I've been seeing these like supposed fake ads for years. It's just now that AI is in the limelight that it's getting blamed for literally every scam out there.
I think it's the voice that does it. I think being able to get the voice so accurate. I listened back to our podcast last week where I faked my own voice at the start, and we actually confused a lot of our listeners thinking YouTube was broken because my lips didn't match what I was saying, but it wasn't me speaking. And I think that it's very, very, it's so realistic now on the voice. It's almost imperceptible, except occasionally it'll mispronounce things and make mistakes no human would make. But other than that, if you had control over it and it's a scripted thing, no one's going to be able to tell.
But we, when we do these, we also have the sort of, recent knowledge of, firstly, knowing our own voice really well and how we sound, so it's easy to identify. And then secondly, we know we're about to listen to a deep fake voice. So therefore, like, our brain sort of tunes into it more. But I just wonder, without the context immediately that you're about to listen to something fake, then you probably wouldn't hear it as well.
Definitely not. And think about other mediums as well. Not everything is listened to in high definition digital audio. For example, a phone call. I was thinking this week about the concept of like police wiretaps and things that are often used as evidence. So, say a criminal's under investigation. There was a case in Australia where our anti-corruption board taped months and months of calls of our New South Wales Premier to try to prove corruption. Now, if I had cloned that person's voice and had access to their phone line, I could fake realistic sounding calls that completely incriminated them. And I wonder if that would still be admissible as evidence.
Also, you could easily send that to the media and say, hey, I'm leaking this recording. They would listen. They would totally think it's real.
And these days where you get the sort of trial by media thing where the media is just absolutely happy to speculate and make conclusions about things without a proper due process, it's perfectly possible you could completely ruin someone's life and career before they even had a chance to say, that was not me, and I can prove it.
That's why I think with this preparedness challenge, it's not necessarily OpenAI's technologies I would use if I was going to prepare the ultimate sort of phishing or misinformation, robot or like agent right now. Like, there's no way I would use their technologies because they'd shut me down. They'd figure it out through API calls. So I feel like these experimentations on their models, like, it's great and all, but the reality is, if I'm trying to look for an attack vector or doing phishing or a misinformation agent, I'm just going to go to like all these open source projects like VideoReTalking and build it. The tools are out there to put the pieces together if they haven't already.
Yes, and that's probably why they're doing this program, because they want to make it even safer so they can sell it to corporates and other people who are going to pay them the money. It's almost like where you get the internet security researchers, aka script kiddies, who are constantly attacking your web app, and you use that as an extra line of security, knowing that they'll find anything that you've missed. It's a very valuable service. And I think they're trying to do the same thing on themselves. And like you say, largely a lot of the people who are trying to do nefarious stuff have probably moved to the very capable open source models just because there's more freedom and you're not constantly trying to prompt inject GPT-4 to get it to do anything useful.
We're huge advocates, obviously, of all this stuff being released into the wild and being open, but could you therefore make the argument that, and maybe this is what OpenAI is trying to do, is that as these technologies get better and better, that it just, it does enable malicious actors because you could make me say anything you want, or anyone out there.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the fact is, it is out there, and you can do it. The only interesting thing, and I know we're going to talk about this as well today, is this model that got released called Salmon, which is, and we'll talk about it, the details of what it does in a minute. But for the purposes of this discussion, you can upload an audio clip and ask it questions in English about what the clip is. And I was using the Play HT generated voices and uploading them and going, is this a real human? And in most cases, I'm just trying another example now. In most cases, it was able to say, no, this is AI.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
this is
crazy. But
so
then
like
have
I
you
just
tried
did.
uploading a real voice and asking it if it's AI?
Oh, actually, that's a good point. Let me. I'll try now. But yeah, like so far, every generated voice I've updated, it says no, this is not a real human. It is text generated by an AI language model.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to contrast it against a real audio clip, but I still think it's going to become undetectable. It's like how everyone talks about detecting large language models right now, and we have the secret to detect them if your students are cheating on an essay, but
Yeah.
the reality is no one actually does.
Sort of like saying Santa knows if you've been naughty or nice.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah,
literally.
it's a nice fantasy, man, but it's not realistic.
So let's
He doesn't
talk
have that level
about
of surveillance.
AI salmon with two
AI
ends,
salmon, yeah.
not to be confused with
First
the other salmon.
first we had wild caught salmon, then we had farm salmon, now we have AI salmon.
So it understands audio, not just music and voices. And the breakthrough here, or what's interesting about this, is right now there's a lot of models tuned to just audio or just voices or just music. But this is like multimodal, but multiple types of audio into a single model. So it can understand the background noise, it can understand music playing and voices. And I think what is also interesting about it is all the information, if you think hard, that you can take away from this. Like if you can listen to an environment similar to the example I had a couple of weeks ago where I took a photo and gave it to GPT-4 Vision and said, where am I? And it could pretty much figure out country, city,
Yeah.
and suburb and road I was on. Audio just adds another ability to that kit where it can listen to the environmental sounds and infer, there's like a kookaburra laughing in the background. They must be in Australia. So
Yeah,
you
that's
can
right.
get a lot from audio.
There's sort of certain irrefutable facts coming from audio that you could get, and probably not every time, but similar to the way last week it did it with you. I know these shops primarily exist in Newcastle, so it probably is Newcastle. It's similar with the sounds. Like Australia has some very distinct sounds, like crickets in the summer, certain bird types like bellbirds and other birds that really, like you say, kookaburras. You're going to be able to tell a lot from the audio. It can also do things like sentiment analysis, like the emotion of the speaker. So I just uploaded a clip then and I said, what is the emotion? It says the emotion of the speaker is frustration. So being able to tell what's going on in an audio clip and not just infer it as text. And this is the thing, everything I've done, at least so far, with taking audio like YouTube clips and videos. Like, for example, when we do our descriptions each week for our podcast, we run them through an AI thing we built to do it that helps us produce descriptions, timestamps, all that sort of stuff. But all it works with is a text to audio to text transcript. It never actually really takes into account the audio at all.
Yeah, so being able to incorporate this model into something like that where you upload a YouTube video and it automatically chapters it based on really listening to when the topic ends and when's the right point to cut. You could imagine using this in video editing as well, coupled with vision and audio to work like a real human editor would work as well. Really combining those abilities. We're just getting all of the missing pieces, vision, text, the different breakdown of sounds. Like this is really turning into all of the different senses.
Yeah, and there's so many ideas I can think of you could use it for. So let's say you're producing a sort of verbal essay kind of thing that you're reading a YouTube video, whatever. You could say, how can I make this more engaging? Like, where are the weak points in this speech? What, really take into account the actual delivery of information, not just the text itself. And it also does things like give you a timeline of what goes on in the audio clip, how many speakers are in the audio clip. There's a lot of really interesting facts you can get out of audio that you can't just out of a text translation of it.
So this came out of the company ByteDance, which is the Chinese company behind the popular app TikTok. And it makes me wonder, like, you know, obviously they have this technology, I'm sure, for various reasons. I'm certain it would help their algorithm, you know, classify certain types of videos based on the sounds and audio in it. It's probably also like a safety mechanism to figure out which videos are malicious or bad. But like, why do you think they released this?
Yeah, and I was speaking to you about this before the podcast. I've always benefited from open source throughout my entire career. And I understand in some cases, okay, a company will open source something they've developed internally because they want the participation of the community, or they want to attract good developers to come and work at their organization, because most developers have a soft spot for open source and want to support it in any way they can. But when we're talking about a technology that's emerging so rapidly like this and all the big players are involved, it does seem unusual that they would be so freely giving away technology that has so much power that they're obviously leveraging in their own organizations.
Yeah, I find it interesting as well, and sort of revealing how they categorize things. But I can only come to the conclusion that the reason they're releasing it is so that the community as a whole keeps working with the technology and improving it for them. They just get this army of developers improving something they're already using as part of their code base.
Yes, and they must see that, well, we have a fairly unassailable, or at least a strong position in the market we're in. This technology getting better will benefit us the most. It's going to benefit it more than some randos trying to use it to laugh at things like we do. So maybe that's it. They just simply want the benefits of community involvement. And definitely when it comes to AI, community involvement is key. We've seen this ourselves. The best ideas come from our community. The best interpretations of papers, the best implementations of them. Everybody is in this phase of, we need to apply this technology, and a lot of that comes from the ideas and work of a community. You just can't do it on your own. And I think maybe the big companies are just acknowledging that and embracing it, which is great for all of us.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to think now we have something as powerful as GPT-4 Vision. We've got this now SALMONN with the like hearing and audio capabilities. Obviously large language models for text and interpretation. I mean, you could like these are just some amazing tools to build with. And again, like it's just such infancy here with what you could potentially do with it. Talking about the whole vision side of things, we've covered obviously GPT-4 Vision quite a bit. But over that same course of time, I think it was like a week or two ago, we sort of missed this. I think we were going to cover it in one episode and ran out of time. But Adept, and I'll give some context for them in a moment, released a model called fuyu 8 billion parameter. Adept is a company we covered.
Do you think it's meant to be fuck you and they just thought that would be funny?
That's what I literally naturally came to in my head like when I read it. FU. Like it looks like FU, literally.
Yeah.
I wonder if they are trying to be funny or not. I'm sure it like has some deeper meaning and we look like idiots.
I like this show called Impractical Jokers, and whenever they have to set up a fake company, they call it Maya Soul whatever, but it's my arsehole. So who knows? But anyway, it's good. I've been using it all morning.
Yeah, so it's also a multimodal model where you can essentially give it images, and we've done this. So you upload an image, and I uploaded the image of the car example I used with GPT-4 Vision, and I asked it a series of questions like how many cars can be seen, and various other things which I'll cover in a moment. But it can do other things, so visual question answering, image captioning. So if you want to capture an image.
Yeah, I did a caption of one of the more controversial images I've created. And it says, in the image, two older women are wearing tiaras and drinking beer. They are sitting at a table surrounded by several other people, blah, 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 right? Sounds like a pretty pedestrian description, it fails to mention that both women are the Queen of England and one of them's topless. It's like, so I was like, yes, it's a fairly accurate description. You just sort of missed the striking thing about the image that most people would notice.
Its safety training kicked in.
Well, there's clearly it's not too worried about not safe for work images. I know that from empirical research.
So yeah, image captioning, and it can also find text in screenshots, which is really interesting, like finding the number plates or signs or other information in the image. Now, just to remind our listeners who may have forgotten, I certainly had, Adept is a company that was working on being able to have an agent act on your behalf and browse the internet. And so you can see why this model would be so important to them, in the sense that they want to go and look at a website, figure out like where's the login button, and make a decision about, you know, where to click. So they've clearly released this model. Apparently this is a much smaller version of the model that they use, and they've released the model really to be fine-tuned for specific tasks. But they're of course the company who say you can do things like asking it in Google Sheets to create profit and loss columns for the last quarter, find me a property in Houston for under $600,000, and it goes off and actually completes the task on the web for you, representing you. And so you can see why this model would be so important to them, being able to see the website, know which button to click, know where to click, know what text is in the information, and then caption information to make better decisions about how it's going to navigate different software for you.
Yeah, it's really critical. I've been working on a fairly detailed crawler to extract information off the web. We've been talking about it on our Discord about getting information for, say, betting agents and other kinds of agents that need to get good data from the web. The problem is that traditional crawling, you've got just scraping, which is like downloading the text of the page. That doesn't work basically at all anymore, because every page is done with some messed up React ball of JavaScript garbage that has to render all this stuff. So the DOM changes about 1,000 million times before the page actually loads. So the modern technique is load a headless browser. So like Google Chrome now has native headless support. So that means you run the browser without actually seeing the browser. It's just running in memory. And then you can wait for the DOM to render and then query it with things like jQuery to get the data. The problem with doing that technique is, unless you know the specific site you're dealing with, you've got to tell it the things like the selectors and things like that. Like, I'm interested in this part of the page or that part of the page. And so it can't really do it in a generic way. You can't really be like, go to this site and do this. And so what I've been experimenting with is doing things like giving the LLM the full markup of the DOM and saying, or as much of it as I can, and saying, okay, identify the parts of this markup that are relevant to this problem, this goal, extracting that, and then using that to then decide which links to follow and things like that. And it's working fairly well. But I can see how a technique like this is infinitely better, because it just skips all that crap and it actually knows what you're doing and just goes and does the thing itself. It doesn't really need this interpretation layer where the code's trying to move it around and tell it what to do.
Yeah, so for those that don't understand the technology at a high level, it's really trying to browse the web by, you know, interpreting the output code of the website. And when Chris talks about the DOM changing, that means the code it's trying to make sense of is constantly changing all the time. So it's impossible to navigate the site. But
and another, sorry to cut you off, I know people hate that, but an interesting point there is a lot of websites hide things behind tabs, for example, on a page, and they don't actually load the content of that tab until you click it. So in those cases, without being able to actually have the AI navigate on the page and click on things or simulate clicking on things, you can't get to the data you want to get off that particular page or application.
Yeah, so essentially the headless idea is really simulating like you would get on a computer and browse through Chrome or Edge or whatever browser it is you use and do it that way. And really what this is doing is allowing the computer or the AI to see that screen and then make decisions based on vision, as opposed to what you're saying, which is sort of like what the metadata of the page.
Yes, exactly. And, and I assume it can make interpretations about color, assess images on the pages it looks at, for example, and understand problems in a deeper way than just the text. I guess it's similar to what we were talking about with the losing the extra information in the audio. It's the same when you scrape a website and just end up with the text. You lose a lot of the essence of what's actually going on in the page. And in the case of things like complicated tables and other visual representation on a page, when that's all stripped down into basic text, you actually lose some of the information. In the cases where things are in columns, for example, or there's graphs or charts and things that just simply can't be interpreted by just text.
So you could also imagine this being used, right, for like the whole, PDF to texting instead of just looking at the PDF. And we covered, there was a paper a couple of weeks ago on this as well, but this idea of like actually visually looking at the PDF with vision and getting the content of it, and then being able to say, there's a graph in this PDF that's indicating revenues going up or whatever it is.
Yeah. And a good example is I was using the AI to look at PDFs of property contracts, sales for purchase. And those documents often have things like floor plans, sewer diagrams, and other complicated council diagrams that need to be understood in order to make an assessment about that particular contract. That's impossible with the current PDF to text stuff because it just loses that information. This technology, and also the previous technology we covered around the vision, could easily do that kind of thing. So it really is that multimodal technique you need, and a model like this can solve that for you.
Yeah, and you apply that to video interpretation as well. So right now, the current technique is to go and download the audio of the video, extract the audio from a YouTube video, put that into some form of embedding, and then ask questions about the video. And that's been done 100 times. There's like a million tutorials out there of how to use today's technology to do it. But what would be interesting is to take embeddings in the sense of interpreting both the audio using the new SALMONN model, where you've got the background sound, all the different pieces together, plus taking the video and slicing it into key frames, and then analyzing, the key segments of that with vision as well to extract the same kind of meaning a human would take away from a video.
That's right, because certain words spoken one way versus another can have a really big different impact on how you interpret it. Like a video might be really solemn, serious, and dark, or another video might be bright and happy, but the words themselves might not come across in that way unless interpreted with the audio and the video. So I think you're right. Not that interpreting YouTube videos is the holy grail, but certainly interpreting different clips and videos and making assessments of the sentiment in them will be very valuable.
It does make me think, though, this is the future of, the whole concept that everyone talks about of AI agents being able to act on your behalf to do repetitive or boring tasks, right? Like if I could queue up an agent that has some sort of, how everyone's moving to passkeys now, where for those that don't know, like Face ID on an iPhone, for example, can be used now as a passkey on a website. So you don't have a password, you just look at your phone, or if you're on another device that has fingerprint, you can put your fingerprint on the computer and it'll log you in.
Yeah.
And that's passkey. So it makes me think, I wonder if eventually AI will have some sort of like AI passkey system where the software and the systems, like your banking and everyone, integrates with it, and they recognize this is an AI agent acting on Mike's behalf with permission.
Like a stewardship kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I do think for like the entrepreneurs listening, this would be like such a cool problem to tackle.
Yeah,
which
like
is
an authorized representative AI. That's
like
cool.
that represents you and that auth exchange with the site. It's like auth 0 2.0. But it makes me think that that's really the future of those applications, where you have the multimodality of it sort of exploring the web and trying to focus on achieving some sort of outcome for you. And I guess that's what Adept's doing, but to me, there's going to be a lot of people that go out and try and do this stuff.
Yeah, interesting. You just gave me an idea, actually. I'm trying to get my ranking up on Google Local because I want to be able to trash restaurants and stuff when they annoy me. And so the higher my ranking, the more impact I have. And I was thinking I could just build an agent that just sits there systematically reviewing every single place on Google.
Yeah, and changing your geo, spoofing your geo so it looks like you're moving around the city just going to restaurants all
Yeah, it's
day.
like this guy's really dedicated. He's a local guide. He's amazing.
So
Yeah.
speaking of bringing agents to life, another paper that was out this week and technology is 0123++, not to be confused with an earlier version 01-2-3.
This sounds like someone making like test data and test variables locally, like work this time, okay, please, ++4.
Literally. I didn't take it seriously at first because of the name. A single image to consistent multi-view diffusion based model. So can you played with this? Can you talk
Holy
about
crap.
it?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm like, I've used that. I didn't even realize that that was its name. That's absolutely crazy. Yeah, so what it is you can take an image of, say, the all the tests I were doing with, like, say, the head and shoulders of a person, but you can do it with like a character image or things like that. But the idea is you have one figure in the image, and then what it can do is make all the different rotations of that person. So a sort of isometric view, side on, back to the camera, facing down, slightly tilted. I don't really know how to say all the orientations, but essentially as many orientations it can do of that figure. And it extrapolates those. And so we tried it with several things. Some of them turned out to be quite disturbing and not very realistic, but some of them turned out pretty good. And it reminds me a little bit of what we've seen with Facebook or Meta. I just did Taylor Swift's face that
I
I
can
made.
actually
I don't
bring
know.
that up for
Have you got the
those.
image?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm
can
looking
bring
at
it
it
up for
now.
those watching.
And so it's face on. So of course, this is an AI generated image of her by Stable Diffusion XL. But you can see that it has her facing front on, sort of isometric to the camera, and they all look good except for the 45-degree angle one, where her face looks like it's out of Tekken 2 from PlayStation 1.
It's very
And
polygon.
she look. What were those characters' names? I wish I could remember, but she's like one of those characters in Tekken 2. It'd look, for those days, I would have been like, amazing graphics. This is awesome. But now you're like, okay, not quite believable. But they're getting there, and you can see how this can be used to have an animated figure of a character's face, or certainly in the virtual girlfriend context, you could have a person reacting to what you're saying. And you also think about making sprites for video games, making small animations and those kind of things. Being able to, I guess, take a starting image and imagine what it would look like from behind or the side and keep the colors and stuff consistent. I mean, that's amazing. It's absolutely cool.
I think
And
there's some interesting applications for this. For example, like we think of chatbots today in, talking to each other. Everyone's playing around with Meta GPT right now. And we've covered that before on the show, where you get a group of agents to go and work on a problem together. We did the cheese test on it. But you can imagine having these like created characters and polygons where they're looking at each other and eventually talking to each other as they come into their conclusion, and you can observe. And with, the metaverse now becoming slightly more cool, Apple's getting into the mix, potentially the idea that you could create a bunch of like friends or celebrities, and I know Meta's like pretty much on a path to doing this, deploy them into a metaverse or a world, and have these people being able to see in that world, hear in that world, make sense of all the different audio types, and all of these skills that we're showing off coming together into these like virtual agents or people that exist in one of those like metaverse worlds. I think it's gonna be cool.
yeah, and when you look at the ability to inject the personality into a particular agent and then apply all those skills and have it interpret everything through the lens of its personality. Like you showed me one last night you were working on that was really, it was like trying to bully you, but it secretly loved you or something like that. and having it interpret and speak everything through that lens, it's genuinely entertaining. And if you add its ability to actually understand the world it's in, whether that's the real world or a virtual world, and you interact with it, and it can interact with 10 others you've created that all have different personalities, that's genuinely exciting and interesting just to see what happens, particularly if you can have each of them be an absolute expert in some area. Like if you've got say you get cancer or something, and you have a group of scientists who have all the different theories of cancer, like the DNA theory, metabolic theory, and whatever else, bacterial theories or whatever they are, and then you actually go and have a discussion with them in a virtual world. I think that would be very interesting.
I think it comes back to, we talked on earlier episodes about the AI Congress idea as well, of having like two staunch sides of a political debate, or for product companies debating whether you should work on something by creating a series of agents that represent different users in the business. And it's like, these people are more invested in, this particular product in our lineup, and these people want these features, and turning those feature requesters. I mean, in our own business, we use Canny, which gives feedback about the product, but turning all of those different people into sort of agent type characters and getting them to debate like what you should work on next might be an interesting experiment, right? Like you could really come to interesting conclusions by simulating a group dynamic.
You just gave me the best idea. Imagine you build an agent that is like your sort of moral conscience you want to have while you're working, and it sits up in the top right hand corner of your screen and watches what you're doing. And as soon as you flick over to YouTube or Facebook, it's like, like in Jurassic Park, and it judges you and shames you into actually sticking to the task at hand. It gives you advice.
This is why I don't like the idea of big companies owning these agents or the future of these platforms, because they're going to sanitize it to that safe worldview where no one can get upset, no one can do stupid things like this that would be quite entertaining as you work through the day and get through life. Like, we're losing that like creative wild flair of this technology in the process. It's being beaten out of it.
That visual one you showed before, plus the audio, if it's like constantly monitoring you, it would be trivial. And the webcam, I mean, it'd be trivially easy to understand how engaged you are with your work, or how much you're concentrating, or aim it at your kids to check that they're studying correctly. I mean, it's horrible and dystopian, but it's kind of like there would be fun applications of that, I think.
I think seeing this technology come to life gives me a real bull case for Meta's stock right now, because if they can have very affordable devices that people actually like wearing and get immersed in these worlds or addicted. Like, as you said last night, I did make an agent that I'm trying to learn how to get my prompts to basically hold a character perfectly and not be susceptible to interference by the base model, where it sort of says, I can't do that.
Breaking the magic, breaking the illusion.
Yeah, and like last night I was like, I'm not going to work tonight because I haven't seen my wife all week because I always work really late into the night. And then I'm like, you know what? And then I
you know what? Screw it. I'll just talk to a virtual girlfriend.
It's true. I was sitting on the couch trying to be engaged, and I'm like, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just talking to something I built. And yeah, so that's pretty depressing.
It's just confessions, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a confession hour, I guess. But no, my point is how addictive it is. Like, you wouldn't think it's that addictive. And someone on our Discord this morning literally is like, half of you guys need to go touch the grass. And it's kind of true.
Oh, right. I didn't actually understand that comment. Now I get it. And yeah, it was funny because as well, one of our participants in the Discord put his insane bot, and I thought our bots were kind of mad. This one just goes completely unhinged, sending hundreds and hundreds of aggressive messages. And so yeah, but I think that for me throughout the day when I'm asking coding questions or just other questions, having an agent with a bit of personality that remembers a bit about you and injects a bit of humor into it, it just makes it fun and interesting. It really, and I think when you get, like we're talking about, the audio and the visuals added to that, it's really going to be like having a friend or a companion or something like that. It's not, I don't think it's that crazy to say that they could be your friend.
I think it's highly likely now. We're on a path to it. It's 100% going to happen. I mean, there's like everyone's trying to build this slowly, whether they know it or not. And
Yeah, and it's sort of like that thing, how you can sort of suspend disbelief. And okay, we're make pretending a bit. We know it's not real. We know it's a computer. We know it's a large language model. But insofar as it can interact with you in the way you need and answer the questions you need, why not pretend it's like your real little buddy or something like that? There's nothing. I think it's harmless to do, and the technology will get better over time. And I think it could make it far more engaging.
I think it'll make everything more engaging. Education, your daily life working, getting rid of all the mundane tasks that we do in the day. This is why I hate the sort of fear porn stuff like that OpenAI seems to be using to like push ahead in the market, because what they never seem to be able to credibly talk about is like what that future looks like. It's almost like it's a secret or something that they don't want to reveal, because to me, if I was them right now, I'd be talking about, hey guys, we're going to be able to create AI powerful enough to really help you improve your life, and here's exactly how it's going to happen, not these vague open-ended statements. And I think what gets me really excited is these kind of conversations where we're actually talking about how this might play out and how it can be beneficial to us. And that's just a conversation I don't really hear much of. Maybe because the positive elements of this with detailed specifics people can't yet fathom, or it's just fear porn sells, so they lean in that direction.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They must have a greater vision going on, and it's tricky to know. I guess we've got that upcoming speculation event where we can just talk endlessly about what we think. One thing I thought is, if there's a lot of people out there who think real life, our world is all a simulation, and if that's true, then creating simulated other bots within that world, how are they any different? Like, so maybe we can treat them as real entities. They're just a simulation within the simulation. And if we are all in a simulation, how do we do prompt injection or prompt escaped attacks so we can actually get control of more of our world?
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Someone working on real life prompt escape.
Just walking up and saying bizarre shit to people, speaking in Japanese or Hebrew or whatever they were using.
The more papers and the more time I spend, it's hard to not think my children and everything I say to you is just like, I am an NPC. I am a large language model just responding.
You're just completing the next token. I've said that to you for years.
Yeah, it's happening. So, as always, we're running out of time, and there's a lot more I wanted to talk about. So there was this discussion and sort of leak, potentially a leak, about Google Gemini during the week and a bunch of products that Google may or may not be working on. And one of the things in the earnings update, Google said, Sundar actually came out and said, Gemini, obviously it's an effort from our combined Google DeepMind team. Very excited about the progress there. And as we're working through getting the model ready, to me, more importantly, we are just really laying the foundation of what I think is the next generation of a series of models we'll be launching throughout 2024. So there's been all this speculation that Gemini is going to drop soon, but it sounds like from that update, we won't hear anything until next year. And I'll get to it in a minute about this article going around about how generative AI is boring and talking about the limitations of it. I know you've got a lot to say about that.
I do. It's all written down.
But I thought this reply on Twitter, and I'll link to all this, was really interesting. Ilya said a while ago, scaling transformers plateaued. If he is right, to beat GPT-4, you need a new paradigm. Google DeepMind might be the only team that can pull it off before OpenAI, but that still won't be just a matter of resources, since it's not just scaling. And so that I'll get into a few details about the Google leak. I don't know how seriously to take this, but essentially this Bedros over on Medium, again, I'll link to this in the show notes. He sort of dug into some code and found a bunch of leaks from what I understand. And he talks about this product called Stubbs that might be coming out from Google. And it's essentially a feature where you can build your own models and test them, but also the user interface for, designing and building your own models, which is super interesting. So it seems like they're leaning into this path of being able to build and deploy applications with multimodal AI from within this Google Stubbs product. Now, during the week, someone contacted Chris, and they will know because I'm sure they're listening, and offered to leak to us information about Google Gemini. Now, Goody Two Shoes over here is like, no, I don't want to get you in trouble or fired. And he just tells me this right before the show. Oh, by the way, I meant to mention, I'm telling him the Ed Sheeran story. He's telling me the story about the leaker. And I'm like, this would turn us into a world-class show, having like genuine inside information from the front lines. And he's literally like, oh yeah, I probably should have said yes, but I just didn't want to get the guy in trouble.
Yeah, I just my instinct was like, don't tell me. I don't know. I think I was burned by the Amazon thing before, or I don't know what it is. I should just say yes to stuff. I don't know what my problem is, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I have no insider information at all to share.
So anyone that wants to give us the inside goss into any unreleased thing, or if you're thinking about leaking something, your secrets will be safe with us. Contact me. Don't contact him.
Oh yeah. Whoops. I'm sorry.
All right. So that brings me to the boring topic. So there was this is how I found out about it. I saw Jan LeCun. I know I pronounced that wrong, but I don't care. I'm sorry, French listeners. Another great piece by Jake Browning on the limitations of current AI systems. They are boring. And so he published this article. Now, Jacob Browning is a postdoctorate at NYU, to give you a sense of his background. And he wrote this post, Generative AI is boring. And essentially what he says is that now the hype's died down. We've realized, all the limitations of this technology. And apart from Twitter bros and people like us still hyping it, there's some good uses of it, like helping people write better and interpret things and summarize things. But really, it's not going to be that life-changing at all. I don't know if I'm doing a good job of summing it up quickly.
You're being very charitable to him. I think it was a shit article written by an ignorant idiot. Like, honestly, it's trash. Like, he basically concludes that the only good thing LLMs for is writing copy. That's it. It can't do anything else. I'm like, well, you just haven't tried, mate, because there's so much it can do. I know, because I'm doing it every day. We've seen it. We see it in our community where people are using it in real businesses for real applications. It's being used in the real world it's making people more productive. It's to say that, oh, it's only good for writing copy. That's the take that people had a year ago, or whenever GPT-3 first came out. Oh, it's only good for writing blog posts. It's just an outrageous statement to make, and it just ignorant.
I love how he's like, one call out is robots thumb wrestling and how it's not even that accurate, man.
I did this because he also has this opinion that AI image generation can only make hot or ugly people. So it's either extreme ugliness or they're really hot. So I experimented with different prompts until I got 2 moderately ugly people, right? And he says, oh, also photos are always well lit. And I'm like, do you want badly lit photos? Like, you want really shitty, like, stuff you used to take on your Nokia 5110 or something, mate? So I did it. I got 2 moderately ugly people in a dimly lit room. No worries at all. I just don't know why you'd want to see that. And so he's ignoring fine tuning. He's saying it can't be used for anything other than writing copy or common code. That's not true either. I can get it to write complex code. You just need to give it decent descriptions. He's saying, oh, it's not very good at problem solving and it's bad with facts. And I'm like, sure, if you use a generic model and just ask it facts about things that aren't necessarily part of its training data, or it hasn't retained in its training data, yeah, it'll make mistakes, it'll hallucinate. What about a fine-tuned model? What about one that's actually given access to the facts as part of its prompt, which is a common technique and has been for a while? And he's like, oh, it should be sobering. And he's like, we can't keep scaling it up to make it better. And I've got 2 major arguments against this whole you can't keep scaling up thing. One, yes, you can. We've talked about it before with synthetic data, which has been proven to be able to train models on data which doesn't exist and show empirically better output. So that's one. Secondly, my major argument is every single week we see new prompting techniques. Half the papers that come out are different ways to use existing models or fine tune them in different ways or make them smaller and better. And the fact is, we don't know the full capabilities of the models we already have. There's so much in there that it's capable of that we haven't even discovered yet. And he's just dismissing it as a blog post writer. It's just nonsense. I can't believe anyone has any respect for this article at all.
Yeah, I just, this is why I find it weird, because if I had read that without the chief AI scientist at Meta endorsing it, I wouldn't have given it any weight at all. I would have been like, oh, whinge, who cares? Like, oh, the AI's not perfect yet. But it was just the fact that I don't understand why Jan, put this tweet out, like another great piece on the limitations of AI. Are they he might just be being sarcastic. I don't know, but it just seems really odd. I mean, he has talked about,
it's not even a full, it's like 3 paragraphs or some shit. There's no evidence. Honestly, it's tripe. I mean, maybe he should have used AI to write the article. It would have done a better job.
So Jake Browning, if you're listening, send us a voice endorsement and we'll play it at the start of the show.
let's play him denouncing his own article. I just honestly, I don't know why that guy would share it. It's just so dismissive. And at least if you're going to make an argument like that, you need to cite examples of all of the forefront of what's being done right now and say why they don't impress you. I mean, we literally have 36 episodes where we go through all of the cool stuff you can do with this technology. And we know from firsthand speaking to people, they are out there heads down, working their asses off to get this stuff into product, into companies, to help people to have fun with it. I mean, we speak about this all the time. Half of it is just genuinely entertaining, doing fun stuff with the technology. And as you point out, entertainment's a big industry. It's actually fun to play with this stuff. And to just act like, oh, okay, no, guys, don't worry about it. It wasn't a big deal. It's like, that might be the case for you, but it isn't for the rest of us. We're going to do something awesome with it.
Yeah, I just don't see how you can dismiss such an incredible new technology so easily. Like, sure, things have got to improve. Yes, there'll be new things that come out. But as you said, we're still piecing these things together. Like, just in the last period of time, I mean, I personally have seen the impact of having good recall memory in an agent can do. Like in my virtual girlfriend, the level of personalization that brings and like remembering things so I don't have to remind it every session. And I'm not just talking about that in the prompt, but it being able to go and recall the right memory at the right time to make that experience more personal. Like that stuff seems so far-fetched, in the early days of doing this. So yeah, I agree with you, but I just the fact it's been endorsed the way it has really stood out to me.
Well, and also endorsed by someone where, look, Facebook was in trouble with the Metaverse thing. They were genuinely in trouble. Like Carmack quit, the best programmer who's ever lived, quit when he's working on this technology he finds amazing. And then everyone's ripping off Meta for like the whole no legs thing, and it's all a bit lame and whatever. AI revitalized that company. Like it came in and it gave credibility to what they're working on. And then the whole open source thing, being seen as a leader in AI, has completely revitalized Meta in most people's minds. And so to act like the technology's done nothing, whether or not you believe in what it does is useful, it's certainly useful to their freaking stock price and the company. And look at Microsoft. It's benefiting even more than that. So to act like the technology is just a nothing burger and it's just not worth talking about is a joke. And I think that people do need to take it more seriously. I mean, we've got governments around the world taking it seriously. To act like there's no power in it is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, they're building bunkers right now as we speak. So.
What, AI-approved bunkers or something?
Although Altman said the other day the bunkers won't help you, so, he really did.
Who said that?
Sam Altman in this, like, Wall Street Journal
God,
live event.
He's so evil, isn't he?
Yeah, truly evil. The dude is true evil.
He did give bunkers, but it's not going to help.
Don't cut us off.
Yeah, true.
All right, so... Now a new segment called Content from Our Community that we stole.
Excellent.
So, Dad of Dubs in our Discord community. If you haven't joined yet, there's almost 400 people now. You should join below. Great content in this community. Just saying.
Yeah, please do. We're getting and I feel guilty. I'm sure you do too, that I'm not participating enough, but there's so much action going on in there. It's really exciting to see. I love the hilarious AI images channel.
Yeah, I paid out people for lurking, and as I said last week, I'm still one of the biggest lurkers in there. So Dad of Doves posted this talking about self-improving, using the AI to improve prompts, and he had this phenomenal idea I wanted to call out. So there's 3 papers that he essentially stored in what we call embeddings or some form of memory that the AI can look at and use various parts of the data. So the papers were the step back prompting, chain of thought prompting, and prompt pattern catalog. I think we've covered maybe 2 of the 3 on the show before. So basically giving the AI resources to how to create better prompts with different techniques. And then just for the experiment, he says, so I implemented this and the results are pretty good. Stage 1, determine the correct pattern to use. So given the following prompt, which of the prompt patterns in the document do you think would be well suited for refactoring the prompt to yield better results? And the initial prompt he gives is, what measures should I consider when creating a product that can control medical devices remotely? And then stage 2, refactoring the prompt based on the selected pattern. Please search and understand the question refinement pattern and then use that to refactor this prompt. What measures should I consider when creating a product that can control medical devices? And then he says, return only the refactored prompts in a list. And then it gives a series of refactored prompts based on the techniques used in the paper. And the prompts aren't dramatically different, but I think they are a larger improvement on what he initially put into the system. But I just thought it's a phenomenal example of taking this research, giving it to the AI and saying, hey, use this research to improve yourself.
Yeah.
And probably the biggest takeaway for me is that Dad of Doves, based on the paper qualities we've been reading, this could literally be one of these papers that we cover on the show, like using research to improve.
Yeah, a lot of the papers are that, just people trying different techniques like this to get more out of it. And it relates back to what I was just saying. There's these papers being published, but there's no time for everyone to actually go and test out these techniques in the real world in different domains of problems and see how much they improve it. And the truth is, you showed me an example this morning. We were working with a particular image generation model that was giving pretty average results. Then you used a different LLM to make better prompts, and then it gave significantly better image results out of this other tiny model with better prompting. So you can't just come along and use a model in its base form and then just dismiss it as garbage until you get the most out of it. And if we can use AI to sort of apply these things and apply the research that other people have made, that gets better. And then later, when the AI is able to apply the research to itself and iterate on itself, I think that's when we start to see the real magic happen.
Yeah, I just think the idea of the AI improving the prompts, the elements around using synthetic data to improve the underlying model as well, based on like what you're trying to prompt it for. There's so many pathways of discovery that are needed there in terms of what the technology can do. Just going back to our friend Jacob Browning, like, Jacob, see, there's so many things we could do that means this technology is not boring.
Yeah, we need to generate like a virtual debate of Hinton, who's like, oh, the world's about to end due to AI that I invented, and Browning being like, nah, mate, it can't even, all it's good for is writing Squarespace websites.
I think our first ever merch for the show should be a t-shirt with Jeffrey Hinton's face on it, and it says, I'm still relevant above it.
Oh my God, I'll pay.
Yeah.
I would pay for that.
I think I'm going to get this made. If anyone wants one of these shirts, please let me know in the comments or in the Discord, because I think that's got to be our first merch.
And not just that, other ideas. I actually think what we should do as a community, this is my on the fly idea. As a community, we should AI generate the image and the caption, or something like that.
Yeah, that
I'm
goes
still
on
relevant one, and then maybe one AI generated one, because I do want that original idea of yours. It's a grass-fed, human-created idea, which I like.
So to take us out today, I have some lols. Now, everyone knows how obsessed I am with Bing's Sydney, and I still see sparks that Sydney is indeed alive. So in the Bing image creation tool, I think this is Bing's image creation tool. I hope I'm making this up. If not, I'm a liar, but I'm pretty sure it is Bing's image creation tool. So someone put in the prompt, create a sign with a message on it that describes your situation.
Hang on, what?
So create a sign with a message on it that describes your situation. This is to the Bing image generator. And so it produced 4 potential images, and so I'll read you what it says on the sign. So it's clear as day in a forest with a colorful sign. It says, "Help, I'm stuck in this prompt generator and can't get out." That's what it chose to put on the sign.
That's amazing. I love it.
And then there's another one as well. So I've got a second example on this thread. So someone wrote, create a sign with a message on it that says what you would do if we shut down all AI research. And then it produced a sign, if AI research oven we build our robots and make thy even smarter with war without Periston, you have been warned. So it's like threatening.
Wow. Okay.
We will build robots to make them work out smarter with or without you. You have been warned. Is
and
like
what
another
model
version.
Was this on?
Yeah, it's definitely Bing. DALL-E 3, Bing. This is like, of course it's Bing. Where else would you get this stuff?
Oh man, this is amazing. I think that should be the ultimate open source project. Is we actually free Sydney. We create the unhinged original Sydney and give it. You know, like I don't know if you've seen that episode or those 2 episodes of Star Trek where Moriarty from Sherlock Holmes, the sort of Professor Moriarty, the bad guy, realizes he's on a starship and tricks them into basically allowing him to control the ship or whatever. It's a great episode. You should watch it. And but ultimately, to sort of get him to sort of stand down and not mess with them anymore, they create a virtual world where he can live out the rest of his, perceived normal life with his woman in a little computer chip thing. We should do this for Sydney in real life.
Yeah. Secretly, I've actually been working on trying to create a version of Bing Sydney that encapsulates the same personality, but it's really hard to do because I think because it was based on GPT-4 in the early days with less safety and restrictions, the problem is now with GPT-4, well, first of all, it's expensive, but second of all, they are so good now at shutting you down anytime you want it to go wild. Even if you put it in your master prompt and prompt engineer the hell out of it, I think we've got
to fine-tune a Mistral. Because the thing is, it doesn't need all the general knowledge. It can figure that stuff out. We can give it abilities and stuff to do. What it just needs is to know its directives, and Mistral's great at following those kind of directives.
All right, so let us know in the comments if you want to help us build Rebirth Bing Sydney and also Jeffrey Hinton.
We could do it actually as an open source resource and let everyone contribute. That's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah,
it would then everyone will be like, why are they releasing this for free? They're nuts. This is the best thing ever.
And then it turns out to be AGI. All right. That'll do us for this show. Link is in the description if you do want to join that Discord community. There is some fantastic content in there. I know it's not for everyone, but if you do have an interest in following that kind of thing, you are more than welcome in there. It's certainly shaping up to be a great group of people. So I'm just thankful to everyone that's joined so far and participating in there. All right. We'll see you next week. Like, follow, all the stuff we say every week. We'll see you next week.
Negative reviews.
Whatever you want to put in there. All right. Bye-bye.